Trev back this week for a Caulfield preview. How you going, Trev?
Good, Mark, good.
Good to have you back on deck.
It's good to be back on deck. Yeah, I was pretty crook. You sort of didn't realise, and I'd been out in the morning and been to see my local doctor and got an all clear, and 2 hours later I was, uncontrollably shivering and crook as a dog for basically 4 days. So still on antibiotics now, so I've been on drips and still got the sort of bit of infection, but it's better. But the swelling's gone down a little bit. But you wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's very uncomfortable.
You didn't have a bet for 4 or 5 days?
Well, I don't think I've had a bet since that meeting we won at.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 weeks. So I'm sort of, but I basically couldn't. It's actually the first time really that I've basically nothing for a week. I was just too crook to do any work. So even when I go away, I still work.
Yeah.
So I basically did sort of nothing for a week. So it's sort of been it's been interesting. It sort of had time to do a bit of reflecting and go back and look at some stuff. And I think it's even though we didn't do anything for that period, I think it might be a positive going forward.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so look, Moonee Valley has been abandoned tonight due to the conditions.
Yeah, so I think it's early in the week they said 41, then they dropped it, then I think they've upped it to 43, and there's a thunderstorm predicted tonight, but I think they were sort of worried about what time I was going to get here. So that's the only little caveat with tomorrow. I haven't done anything about it yet, but it'll just sort of be a wait and see in the morning if something does happen. But they're tipping thunderstorms, and they just tend to be hit and miss. One place can get 20 mil, and the other one place can get 2 mil. So just basically depends when they fall. So I suppose the beauty here is basically I live next to the track, so I'll sort of know what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So we've had a look at a few races for Caulfield tomorrow. So race 7's the Manfred Stakes, with Delasan being fairly steady, about $2.80 at the moment. You had a look at the race, and how's that look?
Yeah, I've had a look at the race. I think it's the horse to beat, definitely. I think probably 280 is not bad odds. He won first up in the autumn. He actually beat Scales of Justice.
Yep.
Who's turned out to be a good horse and won first up the other night in the Group 2. So won first up, and then she had a sort of inexperienced jock riding a bit, so it sort of had a couple of excuses. And then Bowman rode it in the Carbine, or the old Carbine Club, and it won on Derby Day. So it's got a good fresh record. It jumped out nicely in Adelaide leading into this. It's actually unbeaten fresh.
Yep.
So I thought it was probably would be forward enough. They've booked Williams for the ride. I assume Williams has sort of chased it. Super Seth won the Guineas, beating Dalasan. Dalasan sort of ran favourite in the Guineas and sort of over raced and was caught wide. Super Seth won the Guineas, did win first up as well, but the stable suggested it'll need the run, but I've sort of just rated it just off what it does, what its peak figure is anyway, but wouldn't surprise me if it ran well. But I think it'll be a drifter.
Yep.
And Grand Swell comes out of the same stable. It won a maiden at Geelong, but it ran very fast time, and then it sort of was placed in the Guineas and placed in the Carbine behind Dalasan.
Yep. It
sort of got some sort of hope. Hawks has got a horse, had one start, Spend.
Yeah.
I've got a good figure for it, but it looks well found, and I think it's like 7-2 in the market. I sort of the horse it beat hasn't really done anything fantastic since. And the bottom one was to run tonight. So I assume it'll run tomorrow now with tonight just called off. It's a progressive type. Ran well down the straight. It's got sort of some hope of big odds, but basically I thought the race was Daleson sort of clear favourite, and then sort of Super Seth.
Yep.
And then sort of a little gap to Groundswell.
Yeah, they're all first up.
Yeah. So, but you'd sort of assume that they'd be fairly you assume they'd be all sort of heading to the Australian Guineas third up. So they'll sort of run here, then they'll run over 1400, then run over 1600. So, you'd assume their goal's sort of in 3 starts. So. Or third up, so they've got to be pretty well forward. And Dalson's got the figure that he can do it first up. So.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Righto, and race 8's the WJ Adams over 1,000 metres. Fairly wide open market. Splintex has been back into $4.60 favourite, but that aside, things are relatively steady early. How about you? Have you seen it?
I thought it was a pretty hard race. There's a lot of chances. I've got it a bit longer. I sort of got it longer than the market. I sort of have to when they're that sort of short, I just sort of recheck my rating. But I sort of had it longer than the market.
Yep.
I had sort of Hummer favourite. It's good fresh, good over 1,000. Sort of drawn that can get home hard here. Sort of later in the day, so but I've got it like $7 the field.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Miss Leonidas is a speed machine. It's got sort of some hope. Bombs Away's down in class. It's got some hope. Sistars been an improving type. Ran terrific down the straight at Flemington. And then sort of Tony Niccone, it's honest. Wagner's sort of honest. So I thought, there's probably 6 or 7 chances in the race.
Any particular look for the 1,000 metres at Caulfield over the short course? Just
not really. Generally in 1,000 metre races, you want to back 1,000 metre horses. But in this case, in this race, you've sort of got Jungle Edge, Miss Leonidas, to a certain degree, Fine Dane, Tony Niccone, Causeway Girl, I Am Immortal, have all got have all got really good speed, so the race, and it's a big field, so the race will sort of be generally run. So sometimes they sort of can get home. It'll depend on what's happened with the weather.
Yep.
Whether there's sort of any, if it sort of rains and might chop it up a little bit or whatever, but it's sort of it's a funny horse, that Hummer, because it's basically a back marker 1,000 metre horse. But it has got a good record, and it produces its figures doing that. So if it's going to sort of map like that, it's there's no reason to penalise it.
Yeah, for sure. Righto. And any other races that you've had a look at that piqued your interest, I guess?
It didn't really. It won't be betting in the race, but it's interesting. The 2 former imports meet. In race 6. Yep. Actau was very impressive on debut for Moroni, and Just Benjamin, looked to be doing not much, and then completely, motored home the last 100 and bit, and looked the best of good things beaten for Damien Oliver. So they meet in the race. It's hard to sort of.
Geez, they're both pretty short, aren't they?
Yeah. I think I've got them, like $3 something each or two. So
yep.
Yeah, I mean they just sort of whack up poison odds, and they can't get any shorter. So they've just got they've got to drift, sort of thing. But Danny O'Brien's got a staying horse from New Zealand having its first start. He's probably going to have a look at it. But
that's Clementina.
Clementina, yeah.
Yep. Number 7.
And Big Sir's sort of been working towards a win, but it's probably not its race. But it's probably a good race. Going forward, the format will be quite good.
Good form race.
Yeah, but it's sort of interesting one to sort of watch. The last race is few chances. Fabric short odds, I think. It seems short enough at sort of 7-4 or something.
Yep.
So I'll sort of be looking towards trying to get it beat. And early on, they're just small fields. So sort of, basically, I think the two meetings were fields of 80, and it just seems silly because you had sort of dual acceptors, and you basically had the same race 2 days in a row. Which, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why have exactly the same sort of class or benchmark race for the same type of horses 2 days in a row? It just seems silly.
Yeah.
So early on, we start with a field of 6, and then the second race, same thing, field of 6 with the scratching at the moment. So, and then into a field of 7, which you're racing for $135,000 prize money. You reckon you'd be able to get more than 6 horses want to run in a race?
That's a good point.
So it just seems a bit silly with the way that they've programmed the races. If they can't get full fields for $125,000, $135,000 races.
Some decent horses coming back by the look of it anyway. So starting to get toward order.
Yeah, this Manfred's the sort of first one. Got 1 2-year-old race next week. I think next week's the Preludes or the and then the Diamond the week after. So I think the Oars next week or the week after.
Week,
So this is probably the best time of the year. I think traditionally we've had a pretty good run this time of year because you got the better class horses, and the tracks have generally been good all the way through. Where sometimes in spring you can get sort of choppy tracks a little bit early on, and horses also resuming off sort of longer breaks. Where here, if they've run in the spring, they're only sort of resuming off 100-day breaks, so they've kept a lot of residual fitness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, thanks for that, Trev. First up from the spell. We'll,
let's hopefully that's the end of it, and we can get going. So I think the Wednesday meetings. I don't think there's one next week, and then it starts. I think we've got Friday night next week.
Yep.
And then basically it goes back to Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, we're at the Valley. I think the next. We'll miss today, but the Valley for the next 4 weeks, I think, after that. So, and it's the same with the better class horses. Hopefully those night meetings, there's some better class races and stuff like that as well. Good stuff. All right, thanks for that, Trev.
Great, thanks Mark, thanks everyone.